Our guest today is Doc Greene, Patriot warrior and fellow broadcaster, shares his views on immigration and liberty in the United States. Doc has had a long interest in politics and its effects on American families. You can hear the amazing Doc Greene Show every weekday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central, rebroadcasted at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Central. To listen to Doc Greene's show, go to RagingElephantRadio.com. Hi, Doc. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our Heartbeat of the World segment. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Christine.
You betcha. I've tuned into your show for the past month and a half. I found out about you from YouTube by accident. They have these little pop-ups that we think you might enjoy this show or that show. And your show came up. You broadcast on RagingElephantsRadio.com. Also, American Radio, is it called?
AmericanVoiceRadio.com.
American Voice Radio. You are a liberty activist. You're out there hardcore fighting for Americans' rights and liberties, which is awesome. And what's really been great is I've been able to find out more about Texas and you know how you came to be. You weren't always part of the union. You joined after we got started as a republic. But you're really hard fighting out there for the liberties of all Americans, including Texas. And I thank you for coming on board today. Before we get started, share with our audience a little bit about your background, what brought you to broadcast and fighting for liberty.
Well, of course, I started out on a ranch. I actually went to a one-room schoolhouse for the first 8 years of my life. Joined the Air Force during the Vietnam War, got out of that alive, and then I became a musician, and I toured the country with my band for many years. But I got married right out of high school, got married to my wife, JoAnne, and we have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. Wow. Celebrating our 45th anniversary this year.
Wow.
And I've always done things in radio. Some people say I have a voice for radio. So I've always done things in radio, usually behind the scenes and occasionally filling in for somebody. And then finally, the opportunity came to have what I'd always wanted, which was a political talk show. Mm-hmm. And that was with Raging Elephants Radio, and then later got picked up by American Voice Radio. So that's what I try to get across, is the idea, the very concept of liberty. Mm. And unfortunately, we have not had a constitutional republic here in the United States for nearly 150 years.
Yes.
And that's all I want. I just want to go back to the type of government that our founders intended to give us. Yeah. And unfortunately, the school system has done its job in dumbing down the populace. Mm. They don't even know what they've lost. And most of them are growing up in a world where they never had, so they don't feel a loss because they've never had any liberty. Mm-hmm. But I tell people that think you live in a free country, all you've got to do is, maybe you own a house, you think you own a house. Don't pay the property taxes on that house for a couple of years, and let's see whose house that really is. Mm-hmm. Can you get in your car and drive anywhere without your seatbelt because you didn't feel like putting it on? Mm-hmm. No, you'll be arrested. And in Texas, you can't buy a beer after 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a minor thing, but you see what I'm saying? It's all about liberty. It's about freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. And that is what God intended for us. It's recognized by the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States. Those first 10 amendments don't actually grant you anything. Mm-hmm. They simply recognize the rights that God had given you that government should never tamper with.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's what I do on my show, and that's why I took the opportunity when I was given the show, because certainly while I make some money, I would make a lot more money doing other things.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's so true. What I think has happened with our school system, by the way, thank you very much. We had Colin Gunn on, thanks to Indoctrination, the film. You interviewed him, and I saw your interview and knew that our audience had to find out more about what's really going on with our education system. So thank you there. But it's so true. I think now what a lot of people around the country has gotten confused is, oh, look, I have a cell phone. I have freedom to get on my cell phone, freedom to get on the internet. See, I have all this freedom. I can marry a gay person. I can be gay and marry the same sex. See, I'm free. But what they don't realize is these are things that the government should never have their hand in to begin with. The whole reason marriage even existed to begin with, as far as the government handing out marriage certificates, was they wanted to, a black and white couple wanted to get married, and they're like, hey, no, we can't do that. We have to have marriage certificates so we can base who can get married and who can't. So really, the idea of government getting involved in any of that is none of their darn business, but Americans have seemed to forgot what real freedom is. And I think even if we open up the bird cage today and let them loose, they wouldn't know what to do with it. They have no idea what true liberty really stands for anymore.
Well, let's also keep in mind when it comes to the government getting involved in marriage, there's a financial incentive. That's a big moneymaker for the government. Mm-hmm. But the government has no business being involved in a contract between two people and their God.
That's right.
And that is another thing. I'm probably more libertarian than I am Republican in that respect, because I just don't think the government has any business with that, Christine.
No. And yeah, I mean, I for one see marriage as marriage between a man and a woman. I know some people believe that's not fair, but hey, if you're a gay couple, you can do a legal contract. You can go to your lawyer, get a legal contract that, hey, we're going to live together. My stuff is your stuff. And you make a legal contract of it. You don't need to call it a marriage.
Exactly. You can legally make sure that all of your wills and everything are in order. You can do all of that without having to have it sanctioned as a marriage by the rest of us. Keeping in mind, though, the people that are making all that noise are a subset of a subset.
Yeah.
And the homosexual population has never exceeded 2% in recorded history. Mm. And then we're talking about maybe 2% of that 2% that are making all the noise. But if you watch the media, you watch TV, you read the newspaper, you would think homosexuals make up maybe 70% of our society.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the news is very interesting. The mainstream media, I'll say, is that they've really painted a picture, and this is how they hurt themselves and stabbed themselves in the foot, is they painted a picture before Trump won the election that, oh, everyone for HRC, everyone wants her, everyone wants a Madam President. And you know what? The rest of the country did not want a Madam President. They wanted someone who was honest. Yes, I said honest, with integrity and for liberty and for working for the people. And that's who we voted for. And then the people who were not for it, on the left side, were like thinking that the wool got pulled over their face and that this just happened out of nowhere. And it didn't. And I kept telling people who were saying the electoral college needed to be eliminated, that it caused the popular vote not to be heard. I challenged them and I said, for one, we knew ahead of time because it was said that the Democratic Party was already going to get votes from illegals coming into vote, from dead people being put on the roster. I'm sure if we were to really recount in every state, we would see the popular vote also went to Donald J. Trump. Go.
Christine, I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I am pushing for, and I'm asking you to talk to your congressmen and your senators, we need to purge the voting rolls. Mm-hmm. We need to purge it completely and just tell everybody, we got plenty of time. There's not going to be an election for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. If you want to vote in the next election, please bring your proper identification and re-register, because we want everyone that is legally eligible to vote to get a chance to vote in this next election. But the voting rolls have not been purged in many cases in over 100 years. If we purge the voting rolls, we will have a clean election the next time. And everybody wants to talk about the Russians hacking the election. Trust me, Hillary hacked herself.
Yeah.
And the Russians didn't hack anything.
And see, here's one thing, Doc, that drives me crazy, is that no one in the media or on the left is coming forward to say the information is not seen to be invalid. No one is really saying, okay, how about the fact that, hey, let's say they did have something to do with it, which they didn't. WikiLeaks had nothing to do with Russia. But even if Russia had given WikiLeaks the information, no one's saying the information's invalid. That should be the bigger point to contest, that the information against HRC is just horrible. Well, and you want that as your president? You want that to uphold you? She's not for the American people.
And no, she's not. And then you got John Podesta, who, by the way, is a multimillionaire. But John Podesta's own description of Hillary is she smells like urine, cabbage, and farts. Someone should tell her to take a bath occasionally. So she really was a stinking candidate.
Yeah, in all ways, in every way possible. But now let's talk about this, because we talked before the interview that you had mentioned you're in Texas. There's a lot of times immigrants coming across, or I said illegal immigrants coming across the border. And you had said there's kind of a big problem over there in Texas. And not only, where be people from South America, but a lot of migrants from, say, Syria are coming across your border. How much has that been a problem for you in Texas?
It's a huge problem, and I have spies on the border. I actually have a rancher that texts me every 2 or 3 days. His ranch dumps out into the Rio Grande. So he is on the border. He's had a huge problem with illegal aliens coming across his ranch. In one case, he's sitting out in his truck about 2 in the morning with the AC on because his house doesn't have air conditioning. And all of a sudden, these people come up and jerk the door open. It's 2 Mexican couples, 2 guys, 2 gals, young people, and they were going to steal the truck from the old man. Well, of course, they jerked the door open, and he swung his shotgun out there, and he said they went back across the border very quickly. But that is what he deals with. Right now, during an average week, we're running between 8 and 10,000. 8 and 10,000 illegal aliens coming across the border. And here's the thing that nobody knows. You have a different audience than I have here. The thing that nobody knows is 60% of those people are not Mexicans. In fact, 60% of them are Chinese.
Whoa, that I did not know.
And then there's a smaller percentage that are coming in from places like Syria, Libya, Somalia, and they're using the porous Mexican border and the drug cartels as a way to enter America. But it's huge, it's unabated, and they're doing nothing to stop it. And so consequently, it's overrunning. And these people don't just walk through, they leave trash. There are places down there on the border, you'd have to wade through 1.5 feet of trash because that's how much stuff they've left there. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And these young girls that come across, they're getting abused, they're getting raped, they're getting beaten, often by the people that they have trusted to help them get across the border. And this, of course, was brought together by Barack Obama. They actually ran newspaper articles in South American newspapers telling them to come to America. We'll give you an education. We'll see to it that you have enough to eat. We'll give you a place to stay. Unfortunately, there was no mention in that ad of you'll have to work for a living.
Yeah.
Here in Dilley, Texas, we have a facility. It was a hotel. It's now a luxury resort, and it is entirely full of illegal aliens that are here awaiting their DACA trials to take place, which usually takes about 2 years. They've got libraries. They've got snacks and drinks. They've got certified teachers. They've got health care. They get legal counsel, and it costs them nothing, Christina. And here's the best part. They're complaining that the food is not good enough, that the quarters are not good enough. And so they're mad. We're doing all this for free, people. I'm a veteran. They kicked me out of the VA hospital and said I had to go on Obamacare.
That's messed up. That's a whole other story, Obamacare.
Illegal aliens are getting treated better than American veterans, Christina. That's just not acceptable.
No, it is not acceptable. And what's amazing is, I hear people here in New York. I live in New York City, and they're crying up and down the streets. We're migrants. We're built on immigrants. La, 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 la. Guess what? My families are immigrants. My great-grandma came over here on a boat to Ellis Island and stayed a term there as she was vetted, carefully vetted before led into the country. Same with her, my great-grandpa, who she married, vetted, came over on a boat for 3 weeks to a month with swelling seas and vomiting off the side. It wasn't a pretty picture. And if you were not vetted, if you were sick, I'm pretty sure if you were a terrorist for the United States of America, if you had terrorist ideals, they would put you right back on that ship and send you back where you came from. But somehow today, people on the left seem to think, well, everyone should just get a free card. We're built on immigration. But they're not realizing that the way it used to work is you came over here on a boat and you were fully vetted. So here in New York, when he first put up the hold, not the bar against Middle Eastern nations and Middle Eastern people, it was a hold on 7 countries that were already put in place by Obama. Then they had a big fit standing in front of the airport, screaming at anyone picking up someone, screaming at cabs, trying to intimidate them to pick up people. I'm like, who's against freedom here? Is it the conservatives or the people on the left? I was like, people, you're not thinking logically. And
Christina, I also want to point out about your ancestors that came here. They came here to become Americans. They wanted to leave the old country behind and become Americans.
Yep.
I would have no problem with immigrants coming here if they came here to be Americans. But unfortunately, most of them come here to bring the same garbage that they just left. Mm-hmm. They somehow think if they bring that garbage here, it will be better in America.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And some of the ideology, as per like the Muslim culture, Sharia law, is totally opposing our Constitution, is absolutely against freedom and liberty. It's about, totalitarian rule over by men. So
a lot of people forget that the Muslims sided with Hitler. They were allies with Hitler.
Yeah.
They hated the Jews. They wanted to kill all of the Jews, and they sided with Hitler as a totalitarian. Now, somehow that doesn't get any press, Christina, except for on your show.
And your show. But we also spoke before the interview how it's becoming a bigger crisis, not only here, but around the world. Like just yesterday or 2 days ago, Trump mentioned Sweden, and then he got a big uplash over the mainstream media talking about it, saying, well, how dare he? There's no problem in Sweden. But here's the funny thing. For months, me and my partner have been looking across the internet to see what's going on around the world, in Germany and Paris and Sweden and Finland. And there's normal citizens who aren't YouTube broadcasters or anything. They don't have a show, but they're so frustrated with their government not doing anything about the plight that they've gone out there with a camera and taped this stuff. Right on YouTube. You can go check it out yourself. And so we've been looking at this, normal citizens just walking around showing people what's going on in their country, saying, this is horrible. My country's not doing anything about it. Be careful. This can come to your country.
Well, of course, the other thing, Christina, since you mentioned Sweden does have one problem, and you're probably hadn't thought of this problem because it's not getting a lot of press, but they had 3 mosques burned down over a 12-day period in Sweden. And the police have investigated, and they can't find any leads. So there's a problem.
Yeah. So why did that come about? Was it people within their group just trying to stir up the pot and make animosity between the two groups?
I think it's the fact that there are a certain segment of the Swedish people that have looked around the world and seen what Islam is doing to these other countries and said, I'm not going to let that happen in my country.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite honestly, see, this isn't about a religion. This is an ideology that is very, very dangerous. I don't care. I have no problem, like you said, I have no problem people coming here, practicing their religion freely, because we want this to be a land of liberty, but not that you come here and you must do things our way or we'll kill you. That doesn't work for me. Yeah.
That's anti-liberty, and it's anti-civilization.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have that ideology in a proper civilization. And you probably heard me say this before, Christina, but for the new listeners in your audience, what you have to understand about Islam is, first, you have to kill all of the Jews because they're Jews. You have to kill all of the Christians because they're infidels and love Jews in many cases. You have to kill all of the regular infidels just because they're infidels.
Mm-hmm.
And during that period of time, you also have to kill all of the bad Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
Any Muslim who is not as good as you has to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the end, Islam, the religion of peace, there will be peace. And this is how it occurs. In the end, you have 2 imams standing across the room staring at each other, squinty-eyed, saying, I'm a pretty good Muslim, but I'm not sure about you. And when they kill the other imam, the one that survives will be peaceful.
Because there's no one left.
But in the end, there can be only one. And that is Islam in a nutshell. And I defy anyone to prove me wrong on that analogy, because I've studied it. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. In fact, we were trying to get on our show Bridget Gabrielle. I'm sure you've heard of her.
Oh, she's wonderful.
She's amazing. She's a little busy, but I wanted to get her on because she is a Muslim, had been a practicing Muslim, really understands in a nutshell what this is all about, this ideology. And she, you can't fight that because she's lived it, she's been it. It's not like she's painting a picture that's not true. Now, for you, Doc Greene, out of everything going on here and around the world, what would you see as the greatest crisis facing the world and the United States right now?
Right now, I believe the greatest crisis we face is Islam. And I am here to tell you, my name, Doc Greene, that's me saying, it's not Christina, it's me. I am here to tell you, if we do not eradicate Islam, Islam will eradicate us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no middle ground on that. So if you want to have any posterity, you want to have children, you want to have grandchildren, you want to have nieces, you want to have nephews, and you want them to live in a world with any sort of liberty at all, the only option is to eradicate Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it were different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pacifist guy. I've never killed anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even pulled my gun in anger, ever. And I am a licensed gun carrier over 20 years. But I recognize when something is a threat to my civilization. And this is not a new thing. Remember, during the inception of our country, back about 20 years into it, when Jefferson was president, we were paying 20% of our national profit, gross national product. 20% of that was going to Muslims in Morocco.
Wow.
And the deal was, we'll give you the 20%, and you don't attack our ships, and you don't kill our sailors, and you don't steal our stuff. Well, we'd pay them, and they'd quit that for a few months, but in a few months, they'd be back to doing it again, and then they'd come back and want more money for us to leave them alone.
Yeah.
And Thomas Jefferson said, no, we're going to put a stop to this, and he created a group called the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
They gave them leather collars, the name Leatherneck, so that when these Muslims with their scimitars would try to cut their heads off, they'd hit that leather first, and that would give the Marine a few extra seconds to defend himself. And they went over there and fought that war. And we nearly had it won in just 2 years, but an American diplomat from the State Department stabbed us all in the back and went and made his own deal with one of the mullahs over there. They called him pashas or beys. They called them beys. He went and made a deal with the one in Morocco that extended the war for 2 more years. But after that, we beat them down, and we didn't really hear from anyone in the Muslim community for almost 200 years. That's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And so, and by the way, when that was happening, Christine, we weren't in any Arab countries. We had not invaded anybody. It was just a matter, their divine right as a Muslim is to enslave everyone who is not as good a Muslim as they are.
And haven't submitted to Islam, because it's all.
Well, you've got to submit to Islam, but you've also got to be as good a Muslim as the tough guy is.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and what they don't realize also when they say, oh, the Quran is so peaceful and such, it's not a peaceful book. When you look at Muhammad and his whole way of being, even when he was going through Europe and Spain, it was all about conquest, and they have 3 stages of conquest. I believe it was first coming into the country, nice, peaceful, taqiyya, pretending, oh, we're all like friends, we love you, and then we start mating with your women, we start making babies all over the place, 10 babies or whatever, and then once we're in, we start getting into your politics, and once we've gotten into the politics, now we can run stuff. Now we can really take over stuff. And that's their 3-prong approach to taking over, and how they've done it since when Muhammad was alive. They're doing the same thing today. It's an invasion, and they're invading all of the Western countries here and abroad.
You're absolutely right. You have a much better grasp on this than most people. So I hope your listeners will listen and accept that and begin to operate with that understanding. That's why I am personally so rooting for Keith Ellison to become the new head of the Democrat Party. Because as a Muslim, that clearly defines the battle, which is simply our God against theirs. And so I'm rooting for Keith Ellison.
Well, this has been so fantastic having you out here sharing this very important information. And as I always tell people on our show, don't take my word for it, Doc Greene's word for it. All the information out there on the internet. In less than 5 minutes, you can find very reputable people like Bridget Gabrielle, who is an
wonderful lady. Pamela Geller, I think, is the other lady.
Yeah.
And you heard about Pamela Geller when she had that wonderful art contest here in Garland, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. Oh, yeah. She had a Draw Muhammad art contest up there. And a couple of Muslims came out of Arizona, and they were going to come up here and kill everybody that was attending that. So they jumped out of their cars with their AK-47s. What they weren't prepared for is the Texas sniper that was waiting for anyone who thought this could be a problem. So the only damage those Muslims inflicted was one of the cops got shot in the ankle, and they were quickly dispatched. And so it was Texans 2, Muslims 0.
Woo! Yesterday, I talked to a Texas real estate guy, and I said, are you conservative in your area? He's like, we're fiercely conservative, and we have the guns to keep it that way.
Yep, all the time right here.
We need to do that in the rest of the United States. Get us armed so we can protect ourselves against a far-reaching government and a far-reaching other peoples who seek to take away our liberties.
That's it. Shall not infringe the Second Amendment, if I quote it accurately from memory. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Exactly. And that would mean that every restrictive gun law that's ever been passed in the United States must be repealed as unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, when people on the left say, oh, it'd just be fierce chaos, it's like, no, it wouldn't be, because if everyone knows your pack and they ain't going to be shooting.
We don't have any chaos here in Texas, and almost everybody I know, including the women, have guns.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Doc. Everyone, please go to RagingElephantRadio.com. Check out your wonderful show. You're also on YouTube,
Hashtag Amazing Doc Greene Show on YouTube. And, of course, American Voice Radio every day from 1 to 3. It's a live call-in show.
Yes.
And so I want everybody to get in there and join me. And don't miss Christina's show either, because you're going to learn stuff here that you won't learn other places.
That's right. And if you want to debate Doc Greene, he has no problem debating with anyone. If you want to learn and debate, yeah, you're an awesome debater, Owen Murray.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And anytime. And I'd like you to call in on my show, too.
Yes, I'm usually working at the same time listening. But thank you so much, Doc. You have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for coming to Savvy Business Radio and sharing your gifts and wisdom today.
See you later.
After 5 years of creating exciting business content with amazing businesses from around the world, Savvy is now creating a new video series entitled Heartbeat of the World. This series will feature experts from around the globe. We will highlight and discuss some of the greatest challenges facing the U.S. and the world. Co-create with us and find out more at bit.ly/savvypatron.
Savvy Business Radio and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina@savvybusinessradio.com.